The 2022 NFL schedule gets released on Thursday. I'm going to do my post-draft pre-schedule release win-loss projection for the Arizona Cardinals during the 2022 NFL season. Here we go.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Locked On Cardinals. Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. Follow me on Twitter, again, at Clancy's Corner. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. You can check me out on Thursdays with Tyler Rowland of Locked On Titans on the Locked On NFL National Show. We have a good time over there. Thursday will be the schedule release for the 2022 season. The Cardinals' schedule is a little cramped up front, missing DeAndre Hopkins for the first 6 weeks due to his suspension for PEDs. Okay, so I'm going to be doing this as an exercise, as kind of a baseline in a vacuum, talent versus talent, home/away, interdivision, not interdivision, and come up with a number that I have that's interesting. I did this, a little research. I did my pre-schedule release win-loss projections, and I'm going to run them down. I'm going to start in division because, we know more about these teams than we do about teams in other divisions, obviously, because the Cardinals play them twice a year, respectively. Said it. And then I'm going to do away games in the second segment, and I'm going to round it out with home games in the third segment. Like, this calendar, this schedule can be extremely brutal or only a little brutal, depending on when the Cardinals play these teams, on top of the fact that DeAndre Hopkins is going to be out the first 6 weeks. Even before that, where these games lay in the schedule for the Cardinals is going to have huge ramifications. They're playing a lot of cold weather teams. Denver, Kansas City. I guess Minnesota's in a dome. Never mind. Denver and Kansas City, like, if they're played in December, it's a lot different than if they're played in September. Because not only are those two teams going to be difficult to play, they play the Chiefs at home. I'm sorry. I'm looking at the calendar right now. They play Denver on the road, though. Like, December and September, visiting Russell Wilson, it's a lot different. It's going to be a lot different. So I'm going to run it down. Let's start with interdivisional here. So obviously the Cardinals play the Rams at home and away, the Seattle Seahawks home and away, San Francisco home and away, but the home game for the Cardinals is in Mexico City. So let's start with the Rams. Rams added Allen Robinson this offseason. I'm kind of ripping the Band-Aid off here. I'm giving them 2 L's. So we're starting in division. I'm going to give them 2 L's. So they're going to go 0-2 against the Rams this year. The Rams are they just have a more full roster. They have a more full roster. I know they lost Andrew Whitworth. I know that they've lost some pieces. OBJ's still a free agent, but they've added Allen Robinson. They lost Robert Woods, but they still have Cooper Kupp. They still have Aaron Donald. They still have Cam Akers, and they've got guys, and Matthew Stafford's a good quarterback. So until I see the Cardinals that we saw during the first part of 2021 in 2022, I'm erring on the side of what we saw the second 2 times the Cardinals played the Rams. I'm saying 0-2 against the Cardinals. Now you're going to say, oh, well, you're just going to be negative with this whole podcast, and you're going to have the Cardinals only win 5 games. Relax, okay? The Rams are a better team. The Rams have had a better offseason. They're a better team, okay? As of right now, on paper, in this vacuum scenario that I've presented to you before the schedule release officially comes out on Thursday. Now, maybe to the surprise of some of you, I have the Cardinals sweeping the 49ers next season, because here's the thing. I've given John Lynch more credit as of late than we did, a couple years ago, because Kyle Shanahan had 3 10 loss seasons in 4 years. What they did last year was exemplary with who they had. Them making that playoff run was exemplary. Sneaking into the playoffs and then, doing what they did at Green Bay on the road, even though they have Aaron Rodgers' number. I guess everybody in an important NFL game has Aaron Rodgers' number since he won the Super Bowl over a decade ago. But the 49ers specifically, that's how you get respect in this league. Now, what they've done this offseason is regress regarding who their quarterback week 1 is going to be. I guess they tried to move Jimmy, didn't work, thought it was going to be Indy, ended up being Matt Ryan. Is Trey Lance ready? We have no idea. It's kind of a Jordan Love situation in Green Bay in San Francisco, because we have no idea what Trey Lance is going to be as a quarterback. We saw him play a couple games last year. The one flashball memory I have of him was throwing a frozen rope down the field to Deebo Samuel. And obviously we saw him play against the Cardinals when the Cardinals were at home, and the Cardinals, they won by somewhat of a squeaker at home, but they still got the W against Trey Lance. But we don't know what that roster is, who's going to start week 1 yet. We don't know. So for that reason, and Deebo, we have no idea if Deebo is going to be on the roster. For that reason, taking the Cardinals to win both games against San Francisco. And then Seattle, finally in the NFC West, there's a team that's taken a step back, because like the NFC North, the AFC East, the AFC North for a long time with Cleveland, and Cincinnati, for crying out loud. There's been bunny games for a lot of teams that have won a lot of games. Ask Tom Brady how the AFC East was. How nice it was to get a bye every year, because you play 6 games against bad teams in the Jets, the Bills, and the Dolphins for a long time. Now, they weren't always. Obviously, they had the Mark Sanchez, Rex Ryan years with the Jets, but the NFC West has been competitive. And if there was a bottom-dwelling team, it's been the Cardinals. So now the Cardinals have the ability to maybe put up 2 dubs and get a little benefit from the Seahawks trading Russell Wilson. So I'm giving them 2 wins against Seattle, having the Cardinals round out division play at 4-2, which would be an improvement over the last 2 seasons. Coming up next, on the road, the opponents on the road are going to be equally as difficult as the opponents that they're going to be playing at home, but in a different way. And I'll explain what I mean by that next. First, BetOnline. They're your number one source for all your betting sports and, stats info. Find out the latest sports development, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball players from Major League Baseball. And hopefully you got some action in on the Kentucky Derby, which happened 2 days ago. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Go to the website or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right. 4-2 in division for the Arizona Cardinals. Good. Okay. Now, obviously, they play 3 of those games at home, 3 on the road. I wanted to segment it that way because the teams first. Okay. So on the road, they play Atlanta, Carolina, Vegas, Denver, Minnesota, and then Rams, San Francisco, and Seattle. So start with Atlanta. That's a win. I mean, I don't know what the hell Atlanta's doing over there. Drafting Drake London when they had... drafting Drake London and Kyle Pitts in back-to-back years is like drafting Isaiah Simmons and Zaven Collins. It's sure, there was a need, but they had Calvin Ridley last year. They went for, and obviously that didn't work, but when the draft happened, they still knew, took Kyle Pitts, best player available, when, I don't know, it was 5 or 6 or, whenever they drafted. Drafted Drake London with their first pick this year. Cool, win. Matt Ryan's gone. Matt Ryan doesn't get the credit that he should for how above average he's been for a long time, regardless of the shortcomings in the playoffs. So that's a win for the Cardinals. Carolina, that's a win. This Matt Rule thing that looked to be fun doesn't seem to be much fun anymore. They drafted Matt Corral, I believe. They've got Sam Darnold. Christian McCaffrey's going to be healthy. Christian McCaffrey burned the Cardinals. The Cardinals got beat up by Carolina last year with Colt McCoy. Carolina's kind of had the Cardinals' number, but it's Carolina. And this is a more adult team the Cardinals are putting out there than they had the last couple years when they lost to Carolina. So that's a win. Vegas on the road, this is an L. This is going to be one that's going to really be predicated upon where it is during the schedule, especially if it's in the first 6 weeks and the Cardinals, have to go on the road without DeAndre Hopkins. With their acquisition of Devontae Adams, they have Max Crosby, they got Chandler Jones. They've had one of the best off seasons that we've seen. The Cardinals have kind of stood pat, but the Raiders have really elevated their stock. So I'm taking that as a W. Denver, this one's interesting. History with Russell Wilson, but no Chandler Jones. It's going to be on the road, but like, I still think Russell Wilson, if you need to win one game, could be looked at as a top 10 quarterback in the NFL that could do that for you. I just don't know if I trust Russell Wilson. Sure, okay, Jerry Jeudy, Tim Patrick, they got Javonte Williams. They've got a good defense. Like, I get Denver's always played the hits, run the ball, play defense. They haven't had a great quarterback since Peyton Manning for those 3 years or 2 years, whatever it was, 2.5. To be a new system, like, I'd rather the Cardinals play Denver early because it's a new team. They're still trying to work out everything, but like, if you're playing Denver in one of the last couple years, one of the last couple games of the year, and it's going to be on the road and it's going to be cold, that's not a good situation for the Cardinals. But I'm giving the Cardinals a W here just because of the history with Russell Wilson. They beat Russell Wilson at CenturyLink multiple times when they had no business winning those games. So that was always like a mystery of the Bruce Arians years where they'd go to Seattle and win. Didn't really matter. That was where Chandler Jones really shined. Without Chandler Jones, still, I'm giving the Cardinals a win against Denver on the road. Minnesota on the road. This was probably the most exciting game last year when Minnesota came here. Cardinals went down 3 scores. Then they came back and got close at halftime. Then they ended up winning. Like, that was a wild game. That was the Rondale Moore coming out party game. That was the Kyler Murray. Wow, he's an early front runner for MVP. It was way, way early. But they're like, oh, man, this kid is really taking a next step. It's a win. Something's wrong. Something's broken with your organization. Now, they have new leadership, which is important. Okay. Mike Zimmer's not there. Like, I get that things have changed. Even more so, this is another one where you'd want to play them early in the season if possible. But yeah, it's still a win. I mean, I think that the Cardinals are just a better team. Like, Kirk Cousins and like Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, Dalvin Cook. I understand who they have on their roster. I understand the star power that they have. They don't win a lot of, like, they haven't done nearly as much as you'd think they would have with the amount of star power that they've had over the years. So I'm still going to give it a win. And then on the away, as I mentioned already, the Rams loss, San Francisco win, Seattle win. So that's 6-2 on the road. Kind of on par with where they were last year. They had a hot start. They won a bunch of games on the road. Couldn't really bring any home at home. So the Cardinals, through 8 weeks, don't know where they are, but through their road games, I have them at 6-2. Next segment's gonna be the home games. This is where it's gonna get weird. Okay, this is where it's gonna get weird because they play some really good teams at home. Great. These teams travel pretty well. It's not like the Steelers and the Ravens, teams like that that'll travel. Doesn't matter. It's like, ooh, we're going to go to warm weather city this year. It's going to be Phoenix. And they just take over the stadium. They don't travel like that. The teams that are, crazy fans. But the Cardinals are playing some really good teams on the road, really good teams at home next year. I'm going to run down their win-loss record projections before the actual unveiling of the schedule on Thursday. That's next. First, Built Bar. I mean, what else do I have to say about these guys? My dad just bought 2 boxes. He bought peanut butter, chocolate, and coconut. He's a Snowballs guy. I don't know, like, Hostess Cupcake, like Snowballs. Remember Snowballs? I never understood it. I'd rather throw them at inanimate objects than ingest them. But he likes the coconut, so we got coconut Built Bars, got a picture of it yesterday. They've got myriad flavors, so many flavors. They're all good for you. 17 grams of protein, 4 net carbs, 4 grams of sugar, 130 calories. Compared to Snowballs and other candy-like treats, 30 grams of sugar, no protein, negative protein possible. All of these protein bars are chocolate covered. Okay? They've got flavors so they've got these puffs also that are protein infused marshmallow with flavors like banana cream pie and churro. Who doesn't like a protein bar that tastes like a damn churro? And it's only 140 calories. Go to Built.com to get all your favorites. Banana cream pie, as I mentioned, raspberry, double chocolate, so many more. They're so delicious and new flavors are coming out all the time. Check them out at Built.com. While you're there, use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Final segment, Locked On Cardinals. Follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. I will be on the Monday edition. Kevin Oestreicher is having me on to talk DeAndre Hopkins for 5 or 7 minutes. So you can check me out there today on the Locked On NFL channel and the Locked On NFL podcast, free and available wherever you get your podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day, free and available on all podcasts. Free and available on all platforms, I should say. Another P word, alliteration kind of took away from me there. So 6-2 on the road, wins against Atlanta, Carolina, Denver, Minnesota, San Francisco, and Seattle. I know I might be giving a little bit too much juice to the Cardinals with wins against Denver and Minnesota on the road. Again, I feel like with changing regime and then changing quarterback for Minnesota and Denver, respectively, playing them earlier in the year would benefit the Cardinals a little bit more, I think. But, I still think that the Cardinals can come away with 2 Ws. So I have them at 6-2 on the road with wins against San Francisco, Seattle, and a loss against the Rams to round out the interdivisional rivalries. Now, so they're playing at home also. They get 9 games, 8 of which are actually at home. They're playing San Francisco on the road in Mexico City, even though it counts as a home game. So, again, I have Seattle and San Francisco wins for the Cardinals for home games, one of which is actually a home game, and then I have them losing to the Rams because I think the Rams are a better roster right now. They have a better roster as currently constructed. This could go one of a million different ways with who the Cardinals play at home. They play Kansas City, the Chargers, Tampa Bay, New Orleans, Philly, and New England, and then the 3 interdivisional teams. So Kansas City is a loss. Until they're not the Chiefs, they're a better team than the Cardinals. They added Juju Smith-Schuster. I mean, it's like they added Marquez Valdes-Scantling, and they have Patrick Mahomes. I don't know if you remember who he is. They have Patrick Mahomes. So that's a loss. The Chargers, with what they've done this offseason, trading for Khalil Mack, drafting the apple of my eye in Zion Johnson to line up directly next to Rashawn Slater, the left tackle out of Northwestern that they drafted last year. This team is eating their vegetables. And now they're bearing the fruits of their labor. That defense with Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack and Derwin James and J.C. Jackson, like an embarrassment of riches, doesn't do what the Chargers roster looks like justice. So I'm giving this is, I think, Justin Herbert's true coming out party. So I give that an L as well. They play a guy named Tom Brady. I'm giving that an L because until it's not Tom Brady, it's Tom Brady. That's not me fanboying over Tom Brady. It's me watching football for the last 2 decades. It's Tom Brady until it's not. And then these get interesting. This is where the Cardinals are really going to have to stack up some wins. But each of these teams have shifted over the last couple years. New Orleans, first of all, what is this team going to look like? Is it going to be Jameis? We don't know. Michael Thomas is back. They drafted Chris Olave. Shout out to Ross Jackson. And I'm going to trademark my Olave U shirts for New Orleans Saints fans because it's close enough to I love you, and they love Chris Olave there already. So patent pending. Not really. Michael Thomas is going to be back healthy. What is it going to look like? But I still think it's going to be a W for the Cardinals. I give the edge to Kyler Murray. I would almost give the edge to Cliff Kingsbury over Dennis Allen. If this were a Sean Payton-led team, I would probably give this a loss. But for the Cardinals, kind of limping their way through the second half of last season, I think that's a nice way to put it. And because I think that it was asinine to give Steve Keim and Cliff Kingsbury extensions now, even with their current contracts not up, what yielded the latter is actual stability, even though it may not have been earned. A byproduct of what happened was stability. Now, there's a lot of teams that don't have that, and the Cardinals do over New Orleans right now, even though the Saints have been one of the most solidly run franchises. When you do that with a guy like Drew Brees and Sean Payton, it kind of runs itself. But that's not there anymore. Neither of those two guys are there anymore, obviously. So give the Cardinals the win. Philly. This was Jalen Hurts' second almost win, because I think it was last year. It was coming off of a beatdown of the Saints. I think that this isn't Locked On Saints. Ross Jackson could tell you, where Jalen Hurts had like a true like, "Hey, I'm here," and they shocked a team. I think it was the Saints, and they came in to the Cardinals. They came into Arizona and kind of did, but the Cardinals ended up winning that game. So, but I'm giving them a W. Giving the Cardinals a W again against them too. AJ Brown, fine. Kenneth Gainwell is gonna be a baller. He's a fantasy football darling. They've got Miles Sanders. They've got an okay defense. Darius Slay seems to be worth the money there. They've got Dallas Goedert. Okay. I'm still giving the Cardinals a win at home. And then the Patriots. This one's gonna be fun. This one's gonna be ugly because the Patriots don't win pretty unless they're playing the Jets and they put up a 70 burger or something like they did last year. It was absolutely insane. I'm giving the Cardinals a win also. Just because that offense is so predicated. Well, I mean, the Cardinals are going to have to stop the run. With Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris, they're going to have to stop the run. But I still give the Cardinals the leg up at home against New England. That's just not a game that you're going to want to play in like week 17 or week 8, the last game. Even though the last game of the year, I'm assuming is going to be interdivisional, but like week 16, something like that in that area. Because it's Bill Belichick. And yeah. So 5-4 at home, 6-2 on the road. One of those home wins includes the Cardinals beating San Francisco in Mexico City. So have the Cardinals having the exact same win-loss record as last year. And I did this a few weeks ago. I did this before the draft just because it's fun to project. But this one, you actually had more time in free agency. Now you saw that they, traded for Hollywood Brown and DeAndre Hopkins is out for 6 weeks. Like the true test obviously is going to be the texture of the schedule for their 17-week season or 18-week season come Thursday. Because if the Cardinals, if they play 2 AFC West teams in the first 6 weeks, like if they open up the season with the Chiefs at home and then they play the Raiders on the road on like a Monday night football game or something. I don't know how many games the Cardinals are going to have, primetime games, but it's going to be tough. But but if they can backload these a little bit, like if they get them backloaded, and you have DeAndre Hopkins back against some high-powered offenses that you're going to play, this could fluctuate a lot. We're going to find out a lot Thursday, but as of right now, as it currently sits, I have the Arizona Cardinals going 11-6. Follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner. Thanks for everybody who reaches out, comments. I'm not a mole for another organization. I got that comment once over the weekend. I don't dislike the Arizona Cardinals. I know that's one that I get. Here's the thing, though. Being positive just to be positive when it's not actually tied to any sort of meritable truth, I don't understand why that's a draw. I don't understand it. So what I promise you when I did my reintroduction, when this became a solo show again, which it will continue to be, I'm going to tell you the truth of what I think. I'm not going to say, look at this over here. I'm going to sugarcoat this so it's easier to listen to. It's just not how I'd rather just be honest and truthful. And I feel like you are smart and I want to not draw things in crayons just because sometimes it's easier to listen to. Now, when there are positive things to talk about, absolutely. Over the moon stuff. But if I don't agree with the Hollywood Brown trade, I'm going to say I don't agree with it. I think they should have drafted an offensive lineman. I think they should have drafted an edge rusher in the second round. Now, Trey McBride could turn out to be a great player, and I'm sure he will. But the Cardinals didn't deserve to draft a guy like that, in my opinion, because they didn't do what was necessary to build a successful team. So I can be excited about the players because obviously having Marquise Brown on the team and having Trey McBride as part of the offense is going to be awesome to watch. Will it equate to wins? That's my job to give analysis on. And I appreciate people who come back and say, and disagree, and we have conversations about it. And I can explain why I think the way that I think. I don't do this to be a shock jock. I don't. I don't do this to be negative all the time because I'm a negative person in real life. That's not true either. But I don't think that Steve Keim and Cliff Kingsbury deserve contract extensions. Not all 11-win seasons are created equal. And that was an embarrassing second half of the season. And Cliff Kingsbury, I don't think he elevates this roster enough to warrant another 5 years as head coach. I just don't. And when it comes to the schedule that I just talked about, them going 11-6, when the schedule comes out, that could very well turn into an 8-win projection, depending on where the Cardinals play, when DeAndre Hopkins is out, if they add anybody else for the regular season. I did one now because it's fun, and it's like there's enough information for player movement and, who the Cardinals are going to play. It's post-draft, post DeAndre Hopkins suspension, but the world's going to change in, 4 days. So the one that I do after the schedule reveal is could be wildly different. I could bump up a couple wins for the Cardinals. I have no idea. But what I do know is, as it currently sits, 11-6, you take, and you take. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Thank you for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day. Free and available on all platforms. Now make Locked On NFL your second listen. I am on with Kevin Ostreicher today or tomorrow, depending on when you're watching this. Remember, I'm going to be posting, and I changed it an hour. I'm posting the YouTube video version of the next day's podcast at 5 p.m. Pacific the night before. So I'm recording this on Sunday. I'm going to be posting it Sunday night at 5 p.m. Pacific, and then I'll be posting the podcast at midnight is when it gets dispersed. So you'll be able to download it like normal. But I'm doing this. I'm doing something a little different during the off season, and see if it works. Thanks for hanging around. Thanks for commenting. I truly appreciate it. Like, without you, there would be no me, and that's not lost on me. So thank you. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. I'll talk to you tomorrow.